only on S3. Open up.
El Clasico is here. Barcelona takes on Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. And you can catch every moment on S3 or stream live on SABC+. Watch two of the world's biggest teams fight for Spanish football's ultimate trophy. Don't miss out on the heart-pounding action. Head to sabcplus.com to register right now. Or tune into S3 on Saturday 26 April at 9:30 p.m. for the live broadcast. This is the Copa del Rey final. Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport, your home of great football. For the love of the game.
At Duvet Tradeport, we specialize in helping businesses grow through state-of-the-art manufacturing, infrastructure, logistics services, and international trade links. We're an advanced environment for doing business where most ambitious companies gather. If you're seeking progressive opportunities and looking to build mutually beneficial relationships, move to duvettradeport.co.za to see your business grow beyond potential.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Well, living large at any age, bathini ngesiZulu bathi gugu othandayo. Is life getting better with age for you? And are you perhaps getting wiser and smarter the older that you get? The way that you dream, the way that you plan, and maybe even looking at how life excites you. How are you dealing with aging is the question of the day. I would love to hear from you on 061-410-4107. That's our WhatsApp line. You can send through your WhatsApp voice notes there, or you can give us a shout on 086-000-2032 is our in-studio line. We are catching up now with Merle Levin, who is a storyteller and former global facilitator of silent retreats and author of The World According to Merle, Memoirs of a Deliciously Daring Granny. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing just great. Thank you for calling me.
Thank you for picking up the phone. I mean, already, The World According to Merle, Memoirs of a Deliciously Daring Granny, it speaks of a life well lived, a life well, colorful and robust.
I think probably we all have a life well lived. But as a writer, you sit down and you put the magnifying glass on your life and you discover all these little stories that are not necessarily the big story of your life. But especially as I love your question to your listeners about growing older. For many people, it's something they fear, but actually, it's so exciting to grow older.
And that's, in my early 40s now, I adapted the attitude of, I think growing older is a privilege. Every wrinkle, every year, everything, every line that comes, it's a privilege and it's a testimony of a life lived, because no one's guaranteed that you're going to grow older.
Exactly. What's the alternative?
Exactly. That's it right there. So for you, Merle, I'm not going to out your age.
You're welcome to ask my age. I'm proud of my age. It's taken me a long time to get here. I'm 76. And I've been married for 56 years.
Oh, wonderful. What does it mean when you hear the number 76? What does that mean to you? I once asked my mom this, who's 67. And I said to her, 67 going on 57. And I said to her, does it feel different? Like when you wake up in the morning as Merle, does it feel the same as it felt in your 20s, your 30s? Or do you feel the change of the age coming?
That's a very interesting question, because obviously it's different. So there are parts of me that are still young and childlike and feel the way they've always felt. And then there's another part of me that feels, okay, well, I don't need to ask permission to do anything any longer or to be any way, because I've earned this place in myself. It's taken me a long time to get here, and I've done a lot of work on myself to get here. So it's a sort of a mix, I think, of different sides. You know, we carry so many of the same feelings that we had from childhood just continue to live with you. The wonderful thing about being a writer, I think I was very lucky to have the opportunity just to sit down and write a memoir and look at my life. It's like you take this magnifying glass and say, okay, what about this aspect? What about this feeling? Where did this start? What about how I navigate my way through friendships and relationships? What have I learned? And of course, when you sit down and write, you have to be with yourself in the most honest way you can be. So
Absolutely.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
Our lines are open, and we are in conversation with storyteller, author Merle Levin joins us now, and she wrote the memoir, The World According to Merle, Memoirs of a Deliciously Daring Granny. Guko Tandayo, we are living large at any age, and we wonder, how are you dealing with aging? Is life getting better for you with each age and each stage, or are you just getting better at dealing with life? Because that's the other way of perhaps looking at it. Feel free to send us a voice note, or you can give us a shout. You're more than welcome to do so. Life after career, Merle, because at 76, you obviously had a very long and rich career that's still going because you're still writing. What becomes of life and meaning after retirement, after you've given 4 decades to a career, and you've walked that journey? Because I think a lot of people probably dread that moment. I have an aunt who just retired from teaching, and I can see that she's emotionally in a place of limbo.
I think what work gives us, what a job gives us, is a sense of usefulness. And also when the family is young, there's this feeling that you're useful and important. And for many people as they get older, they have this quest to continue to feel useful, even if you don't have the outer trappings of a job or perhaps even a role in the family. But I think the great gift about being in the final season of your life, the third, as I call it, is that you can enjoy everything. You find opportunity to discover your own reason for being, your own meaning, and that comes through many different avenues. One is to become part of a community is strong. So I live in a small village, and that's very special because there are other people my age, and we have a strong sense of community and strong sense of wanting to age well together and support each other. So a job gives one that sense of belonging and sense of community. And then when you retire, a lot of people feel at a loss. Now what am I going to do with my time? What's my reason for getting out of bed in the morning? But actually, aging, the deeper we delve into this chapter of life and the richness of it, the more we have to offer to our world, to our children, to our friendship groups, to our society at large. And I think it all begins with the need to feel useful, not depend on anything external to give you that sense, but to discover that you have it within yourself.
Absolutely. Are you still discovering new things about yourself and about this life?
I love that question Because it's an important question to ask an older person. Are you still discovering new things? Of course I am. Every single day is new. Every opportunity. I keep learning so much about myself, my ineptitudes, my talents, what I'm good at, what I'm completely doff at, and the two, live side by side. But the wonderful thing about getting older is I think you stop taking yourself so seriously, and life, you begin to see life from the perspective of how precious time is.
And that's a wonderful perspective. I feel as if you and I could have a cup of tea and you can share all the wisdom with me. Our lines are open for you to be a part of our conversation on WhatsApp. You can send us a voice note on 061-410-4107. In fact, before maybe we even go to the headline news, let's just get a glimpse of what's on your mind.
Hi, Bridget and your team in the studio. Anonymous from Mpumalanga. What an interesting topic of growing older. I'm also growing older very nicely and cruising nicely at 61. I'm navigating a lot of new hobbies. I'm exercising, taking it very slowly with yoga and just small and short walks. I'm enjoying my kids and my grandchildren. Thank you. Enjoy your show.
Masinga, this is John from Pretoria. I hate getting old. I'm now early 60s. I'm impatient. I'm grumpy. I don't like change. I don't like noise. And it's painful every single day to wake up. Every step one takes, it's so much pain. I hate getting old.
Aww.
I wish I could just go to the next world.
Oh, no, John. No, that final sentiment. No. We're going to come back on the other side and we're going to chat to John's comment with my guest, Merle Levin. We'd love to know from you, how do you feel about getting older? How are you dealing with aging? Give us a shout on WhatsApp or you can give us a call. It's just gone 1:30. It's time for Ondela and the headline news.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, the EFF has called on Parliament to withdraw the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals adopted nearly 4 weeks ago. The Likwatimane local municipality has cautioned residents and businesses on the banks of the Far River in Bloemhof and Christiana about possible flooding later today, and 2 more suspects have been arrested in connection with the number of a 50-year-old man at Wynberg Magistrate Court, bringing the total to 4. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
We're having a conversation around getting older, living large at any age. Gugu Tandayo, how are you dealing with aging? What are some of the things that perhaps you've come to realize the older you get, whether about yourself or about life, or perhaps you have a reignited sense of joy, sense of belonging, sense of whimsy that has overcome you. We'd love to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And of course, on this show, as we always say, we listen, we don't judge. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. And Merle, the unfortunate part is I chuckled a little bit at John at the beginning because he was talking about sort of the quirks of getting older, which I think even when we are in our 40s, suddenly you can't drive when the radio's on too loud. You need to turn down the volume because it messes with your concentration. Or you start having these little weird quirks that go, oh, okay, I'm turning into my mother. But the final sentiment, when he was talking about the aches and the pains and getting up being a bit more painful and, him just wanting to now perhaps transition to his final spot. That part I found really sad because from his voice, it sounds as though John still has a young spirit about him.
Yeah, exactly. I love the contrast of the 2 callers. because the first woman who called in spoke of all the new things she's discovering in her life.
Yeah.
And I actually hear in John's voice a bit of a sense of humor. He is poking a bit of fun at himself, at how tough it is to grow old. And let's face it, it's not much fun. It aches, you're slower, you don't remember things, you know, stuff goes on in the body. But there's still this great, fantastic opportunity called life. And to do something new, to challenge yourself in particular ways. I think John, because of his honesty and the way he's sort of poking fun at himself and saying he's hating growing old so much, has an opportunity to discover in there something that he'd like to challenge himself with and to go for it. And that's a key. Do something new. Reach out to someone you haven't seen in a long time. Close a circle, you know, something that feels incomplete. Go out and do it. It takes getting the energy going and seeing that life is so precious. Every day is such a precious gift.
Absolutely. I love it. Jabulo in Durban, how are you?
I'm superb, Bridget, and yourself.
We are great, thank you. Go ahead.
I love the subject because I talk about it all the time with my wife.
Yes.
I'm a very young, 36 years old, going on 37.
Yes.
But life has changed a lot from my youth. I was the sportiest person, active, played every sport there was, and it's just not the same. The body doesn't recover the same. It's not. I'm getting older, and I realize it, and I have quite a few colleagues and friends who are pretty young, who are in their early 20s, and they are chomping at the bits, and they're always challenging me. And as guys, we have this thing about competition, about wanting to be the best there is. And I think that's what affects John as well. We do not have the grace to accept our limitations. And a part of my journey of growing older is that I'm accepting the limitations. The body is not the same. It will not react the same. Slow down and put yourself in a place that allows you to enjoy growing older. So a friend of mine suggested we take on Hydrox. I laughed at a very good laugh. I was like, we have no business doing that, my good sir. Our knees are no longer there, and it will take us 3 weeks to recover. Do you want to put yourself through that? Going out, you go out one night a month. We're planning with my wife for next weekend at Gunye. We've planned this for a month. It's our one night out for the month. And that is just how it is now with life. You've got to have the grace to accept the limitations that are, and you'll be very comfortable then, and you will enjoy growing older.
Oh, Jabulo was one clingy, so thank you so much. Jabulo, you made me laugh because at 36, you a spring chicken. I mean, at 36, imagine what you're going to be like at 56, Jabul. At 36, you can still do the whole night of partying and do 2 consecutive nights. But I guess to some degree, Merle, to some degree, there are changes that happen. In your 30s, your 40s, things, gradually you start seeing these things that, okay, there are physical signs, mental signs of I am getting older, and some for the best and some for the worst.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think it's wonderful for a young man in his 30s to be thinking about growing older, because for a lot of people, you never think about it, and suddenly it creeps up on you, and you look in the mirror and you go, oh my gosh, I look just like my grandmother. So it's good to think about, because we know we're all going to get older. And there are parts of it that are not fun. The memory story, for example. You think, gosh, Why did I just walk into this room? I can't remember what I was coming from. Or what was I reading? Or you see somebody you know really well and you can't remember their name. Those aspects of growing older get very frustrating. But the joy of it is that there's a kind of seasoning. Wine gets better as it ages. And there's that feeling that the things that used to upset me don't upset me so badly, especially in relationship.
Yeah.
My husband and I discover we laugh at things that used to irritate us. Now we find them funny, just because we're seeing life through the lens of older eyes. We're seeing how precious every day is and how precious time is and new opportunities. And I would encourage everyone to keep doing new things, especially things you're a little bit scared of doing. Challenge yourself, and that way it helps us stay young. It's good for the brain. So we need to exercise our brains, our heart, our bodies. There's a part of us that would just love to sink into the old patterns that are familiar. But if we want to stay in a frame of mind that supports staying younger rather than aging too quickly, we have to be challenging ourselves.
Absolutely. I love that. And I just want to go in a quick break. I'll come back on the other side, share a little bit of an anecdote about my growth measure getting into my 40s, something that made me go, oh, okay, I'm older now. I handled that a little bit differently. And we'll take some of your voice notes as well before we wrap up our conversation.
It's the catch of the season as our 3 madcap fishing fanatics are back, embarking on even a more exciting adventures across the globe. Get ready for bigger fish, bigger laughs, and more extreme destinations in a series packed with adrenaline-fueled fishing antics and plenty of friendly rivalry. Fishing Impossible Season 2, Fridays at 10 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
After a 0-all draw in Mzansi, the Pyramids are confident they will complete their agenda with victory on home soil. But Rivero's boys believe they will end their long-distance trip to Egypt with an impressive performance. This is the second leg semi-final clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the thrilling encounter of African football. Pyramids FC versus Orlando Pirates this Friday, 25 April at 7:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 2, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends, you need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hello, Bridget. Yeah, I'm 60, turning 61 this year, and I also can't believe I still feel like I'm 30 or 40, but you can't deny the back pain that I never thought I'd ever have because I've been active all my life, and when I look in the mirror, I get such a fright. And the other thing that surprised me, I've been thinking about it, everybody's my age. And I'm wondering if the world is like curated to my age group. Like, you know, the movies that I like to watch, it's all like the detectives are my age. When I go to Fruit and Veg and Woolies, the people are all my age. And I'm thinking, how has this happened? Where have all the young people gone? Anyway, thank you for your lovely show. I love it.
Thing is, I don't mind growing older because I don't look it. The issue is my health has not always been good. Car crashes, chronic illness, and whatnot. Though I don't look my age, I'm turning 46. It's a struggle. The pain is something else. I need the money. I still have the mental aspect. It's okay depending on the day or what's happening or who has upset me. But inside, because of the car crash caused me problems. I don't mind aging, honestly, only if the pain wasn't there. Bye.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. And I think a lot of folks just want to age as best as they can, especially physically and health-wise, without having any issues. So that's very sad. I'm so sorry about that. But I also had to find some kind of delight in the first voice note, Merle, where she talks about, well, is the world now curated through my lens?
Yes. Exactly. What happened to all the young people? Everybody seems to be my age lately.
That was so delightful. But
Yes.
I love it. I think in just for the conversation, there's a positivity around getting older, even, you know, with the struggles that come with it, with the challenges, perhaps, you know, declining health here and there, physical, you know, little aches and pains. But I think there's a general positive sentiment about just growing older and everything that comes with it.
And I think we're very lucky that we live in an era where we have, where our health is supported. We know a lot more about how to take care of ourselves as we get older. And so that kind of preparation needs to start as early as possible, not to wait till we're old.
Absolutely.
But to start thinking about being healthy, eating healthy, living a healthy life, feeling useful. It's very important. You know, somebody, I don't know if you know or you've seen the series on Netflix called The Blue Zones.
Mm-mm.
It's a very interesting series of small towns and villages around the world where people age very well. And this researcher went in and tried to see what was it that keeps people aging healthy. And community life is a very big part of it. Feeling useful, being in nature, taking time to walk and to do new things, to challenge yourself.
Absolutely.
Very, very important.
Absolutely.
Never to give up.
That there is the note that we will cling on to. Never to give up and taking life's challenges as they come and drinking every sip from life that it's got to give you. I've so thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
A storyteller.
I loved meeting you, and I really enjoyed hearing the callers that called in, and thank them for that. And just wish everyone a healthy, happy life.
That we shall. That was author of The World According to Merle, Memoirs of a Deliciously Daring Granny. We're going to take a quick pause and then we come back and we get into stages, pages, screens and more.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195.
Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Red Devils want to add more heat in Cairo to make life difficult for Masandawana, but Kabuyelo refused to shake and break. They are on a mission to elevate their game and march to the final with big smiles. It is do or die. This is the second leg semi-final encounter of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Catch the incredible action of African football. Al Ahly FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC. This Friday, 25 April at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba! As they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
A quick catch-up conversation with Dr. Kylie Thomas, who's a senior lecturer and Radical Humanities Laboratory at the University College Cork in Ireland, who joins us now to talk to us around the history and the times of Ernest Cole, born Ernest Cole in 1940 in Easterrust, Pretoria, passing away back in 1990 in New York. And I wanted to just have a quick snippet of a trailer, and this is a documentary film titled Ernest Cole, Lost and Found.
My name is Ernest Cole. I was born March 21st, 1940 in Pretoria, South Africa. In the 60s, every day, every hour, despite the dangers, I photographed apartheid without stopping. In their gaze, their gestures, I tried to find meaning. Chronicling misery, injustice, and cruelty had become my everyday. But exposing the truth had a price. It's called exile. I thought I discovered a new world, one of liberty and equality. From New York to the south of the United States, I photographed these bodies, these looks, caught furtively on the move. However, a reality dawned on me. In South Africa, I was afraid to be arrested. In the United States, I was afraid to be killed. But I never ceased photographing, even for a single moment.
Powerful documentary, and it is available, by the way. You can find it online if you'd like to have a full view of it. Ernest Cole, Lost and Found. Dr. Kylie Thomas joins me now. How are you, Dr. Kylie?
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me to speak about Ernest Cole with you, Bridget.
Thank you for the time. Ernest Cole, I think, is a name in South African photography journalism photography, perhaps that has become lost with time. Give us a brief background.
Yeah, thank you. So Ernest Cole is in fact one of South Africa's most significant photographers, and he's most famous for a very powerful book that he created. It's a book of photographs that he took over a period of around 6 years in South Africa, from the time of the Sharpeville massacre and over a terrible time in the country's history during apartheid. And that book is called House of Bondage. And he was really young when he made that book, because he was just 20 years old when Sharpeville happened. And so it's a vision of a young person in South Africa, which is part of what's amazing and remarkable about it.
Yeah. And in fact, he started his career, as you say, very young, and he started as one of the freelance photographers as well, photographing for iconic titles like Drum Magazine back in the day, and the Rand Daily Mail and the Sunday Express. Making him one of the first freelance photographers, if not the first freelance photographer in the country, and very important part of the Drum Boys, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct. And, he was a fiercely independent person. I think he always followed his own path. And he, in fact, left school because of the introduction of Bantu education. And so he chose to drop out of school, and he began a path of study through correspondence with the New York Institute for Photography, which is quite amazing if you think back into that time, somebody doing that. And then by the time he was 18, he was working as a darkroom assistant for Drum, and then very quickly, set off on his own path. He had a vision, to create this book.
I came across a quote by Ernest. By the way, was it just a matter of, because of where he found himself in exile, that the pronunciation of his surname took on a different nuance? Because he was born originally Ernest Cole.
Yeah, no, so it's not a result of exile, but rather what made it possible for him to even leave the country, because he changed his name so that he could be reclassified as during apartheid as colored. And so that meant that he made it easier for him to leave the country, I think, and also made it possible for him to move through spaces that would not have been possible for him as a Black African person. So some of the photographs that he took were enabled by him having grown up in Easterist first, and then living in Mamelodi, and knowing all the spaces in which he was photographing and moving through them as a Black person. But he also, for the purposes of apartheid documentation and making it easier for him to be in spaces where if he was classified as colored. And that's why he changed his name.
Okay, makes perfect sense. And I came across a quote where he says, "I quit school in 1957 rather than to go along with the Bantu education for servitude, which had become more strict than before." I mean, already this speaks of, as you said, a young man really charting his own path and challenging the status quo of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he certainly was a brilliant person. It's a brilliant mind. What's emerged, because a whole lot of documents about his life has resurfaced, is his notes, his own notes written in his own hand. And I think, when his book was first published, because of the kind of racist paternalism of the time, a lot of people attributed some of the vision and insight in that book to white people who were around him, who sort of helped him and facilitated some of his work. But certainly the vision and the incisive critique, his damning critique and indictment of apartheid, that was all his own. And he did a lot of research. There's notes that he took. He interviewed people. He spoke with them. He understood what was going on. So the power in that book, it comes from him. And he was really young. As I said, he was, 20 years old when he began working on the book. It's a very unusual thing for somebody to be able to pull something like that off. It's remarkable.
I've also come to learn that there's been a discovery of a vault with that comprises of the negatives of his work somewhere in Sweden?
Yeah, that's correct. So, and that was actually back in 2017. So a lot of the work that Ernest Cole made, so in order to publish his book, House of Bondage, he left South Africa on an exit permit and he lived in exile. And the reason he went over to the US was so that he could publish this book. And while he was there, so he never returned home. And while he was living in the US in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, he also traveled to Sweden during that time. And he took a vast number of photographs, a huge number of photographs. And all of that material was thought to be lost. Then in 2017, his nephew, Leslie Matlesane, received a call, actually received an email from a bank in Sweden saying he should come there to collect materials belonging to his uncle. And he didn't know what he would find there, but he was quite suspicious at first, but he went over there, and there were boxes of incredible materials and this was the lost materials of Ernest Cole's archive, which included his notes and research material, as well as the negatives, contact sheets, and prints of his photographs.
In our last minute, I know that you focus a lot of your academic career around significant photographers, particularly Black photographers of the apartheid era. Why so important to document these stories and also to ensure that all this archival work is categorized and historically placed?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So if we just think about this in relation to Ernest Cole, his work is important not only because he's got this incredible and inspiring story of this brilliant photographer who also had a tragic life in exile, but because his work is a reminder of how much suffering apartheid caused. And his work, and along with the other photographers who worked alongside him and then after him, documenting what apartheid was, and that helps us to know and remember that time, and to engage with the legacy of that, and helps us to see what we still need to change and overturn in the country now.
Absolutely. Dr. Kylie Thomas, I get the feeling that this is not going to be the last of our conversations throughout the year. We appreciate the time with you today, and next time I'll endeavor to make it a little bit longer. That was Dr. Kylie Thomas, is a senior lecturer at Radical Humanities Laboratory at the University College Cork in Ireland, and of course focusing a lot of her academic work as well in just restoring the legacy of those photography journalists who did incredible work in documenting the apartheid regime of South Africa. It's just gone 2:00. We are going to head into the news, then come back on the other side, and we're talking family home inheritances, disputes, and legacies.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2. EFF calls for the withdrawal of the fiscal framework proposals, and 2 more suspects arrested in the Wynberg court shooting. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. The EFF has called on Parliament to withdraw the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals adopted nearly 4 weeks ago. The party is also calling for the resignation of Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. This follows an announcement by the Finance Ministry that the 0.5 percentage point VAT increase would be rescinded. The party joined the DA in the Western Cape High Court application to interdict the VAT increase, arguing that the adoption of the budget was done via deceitful and unprocedural means. EFF spokesperson and MP Sinawo Tambo explains their position.
We call for the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces to convene and adopt resolutions to withdraw the adopted 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals on the basis that they were adopted following an unprocedural meeting which approved the reports. The EFF will consider the written out-of-court settlement proposed by the Minister of Finance. However, we maintain that without a full withdrawal and reset of the budget process, whatever follows remains illegal and unconstitutional.
Meanwhile, the MK party spokesperson Tlamulo Ndlela has welcomed the reversal of the 0.5 percentage point VAT increase, but says there is a failure to alternatives to the hike because of the country's leaders.
We've always said that we're led by lazy thinkers in this cabinet because there's many other solutions that we have even proposed as Mkhonto weSizwe. Firstly, one of the examples is that you double infrastructure investment from 5% to 10%. That brings about activity in the economy, job creation, and by virtue of that, it creates a momentum for small business creation. That alone will then increase growth in the GDP in this country. Simple. We want to nationalize this bank so that we can also bring in not just their mandate being inflation targeting, but you also need to bring in labor related so that you balance the two. We can easily save 100 billion from the 76 billion that they want, just from that. So we're saying that it's because of the lazy thinkers that we have in this country.
The Likwatimane local municipality northwest has cautioned residents and businesses on the banks of the Vaal River in Bloemhof and Christiana about possible flooding later today. This as parts of the country continue to experience heavy rains. Mayor Sibang Mutlabi says they have been warned that water levels will rise during the course of the day as sluice gates will be opened at the Vaal Dam.
The Vaal Dam, they are going to be opening the sluice gates, and Bloemhof Dam as well, they will be opening the sluice gates. Residents have been notified. They are advised to evacuate, and we are positive that the evacuation is underway. Where they need help out of humanities, the municipality will help them, and we have informed all relevant stakeholders.
2 more suspects have been arrested in connection with the murder of a 50-year-old man at the Wynberg Magistrates Court, bringing the total to 4. Police spokesperson Wesley Twig says the arrest of 2 men aged 23 and 34 was made this morning. The ongoing investigation follows the fatal shooting of the victim linked to the taxi industry inside the court premises earlier this month.
Led Western Cape serious violent crime detectives to the southern suburbs, where they arrested 2 males aged 23 and 34 in connection with the murder. The 2 suspects will appear in the Wynberg Magistrates Court on Friday on a charge of murder.
Police in Indian-administered Kashmir have named 3 militants suspected of carrying out Tuesday's deadly attack in which 26 people were killed at a resort. They say 2 are Pakistani nationals. Delhi has closed its main border crossing with Pakistan, suspended a water-sharing treaty and ordered the expulsion of some Pakistani diplomats. The BBC's Azadai Mushiri reports.
The police have announced a reward of around $25,000 for information on the attackers, whom Prime Minister Modi said would be pursued to the ends of the earth. Terrorism, he said, would not go unpunished. A massive manhunt for the gunmen continues in Indian-administered Kashmir. Officers have been rounding up those with suspected links to the militants. Funeral rites for the 26 victims have been performed in towns, cities and villages in many different parts of India.
Recapping the top story, EFF has called on Parliament to withdraw the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals adopted nearly 4 weeks ago. I am Ondalambana for SFM News Headlines at 2:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Tohoyandou.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. # your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
The confession booth. A place where the sin-laden soul can offload their transgressions, all in the hopes of finding reprieve for their sins. Stolen your co-worker's lunch? than the ordinary confession booth with your regular priest will do. But murdered your longtime nemesis and dumped their body in a vat of acid? Oh, then you better hope you're not in Father Brown's confession booth, because he is bent on catching all the bad guys. Tune in to Father Brown, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m, only on S3. Open up.
S3. El Clasico is here. Barcelona takes on Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. And you can catch every moment on S3 or stream live on SABC+. Watch two of the world's biggest teams fight for Spanish football's ultimate trophy. Don't miss out on the heart-pounding action. Head to sabcplus.com to register right now. Or tune into S3 on Saturday, 26 April at 9:30 p.m. for the live broadcast. This is the Copa del Rey final. Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport, your home of great football. For the love of the game.
Stay ahead of the financial game. Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights on SAFM Market Update. Brought to you by SIPS, the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, shaping the future of procurement one smart decision at a time.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Kana fo wale de ma tora kutala
One of my favorite songs, this one, Omusangare. And she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. She's also one of those, our earlier conversation around getting older, because Omu is in her 60s, in her late 60s. She's a Malian, obviously Malian Wasulu singer. She's of Fulani descent. And she's just amazing. They actually refer to her as the songbird of Wasulu, which is, if I recall correctly from my time in Senegal, speaks to a particular language of a particular people. So yes, because Fulani is a nomadic tribe, right? Fulani are nomadic tribes. I went to Senegal one day. I'll tell you the story about how I fell in love with Senegal. I was in broadcasting at my previous station in Senegal for 2 weeks, and I had the best of time. Was introduced to the culture, the people, and just the territory in that region, the likes of Omusangare, and fell in love with the Fulana. There's a particular breed of cow which comes out of that region. Wonderful big white cows with impressive horns. And you find them just dotted around everywhere. And I fell in love with them. They're nomadic cow. They travel with the Fulani people. And I have a slight obsession with cattle, which is why we need the land back. I have a slight obsession with cattle. So if I could, I would bring some Fulani at this side. But please, if you love music, if you love Malian music, if you love music from that part of the continent, then Omusangare is somebody that you should be adding to your music playlist. Right now, though, we're catching up with director at Dubazane Attorneys in Tabiseng Dubazane, and we're talking family, home inheritance, the disputes, the legal perspective around some of that drama that happens. How are you doing this afternoon, Tabiseng?
I'm well, Bridget. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm great. Little out of breath because I was dancing to Omu, but I'm great. Thank you very much. Let's talk about family homes, because I think we don't, we all grow up in family homes, Caucasian, Indian, colored, identifying, black, whatever. We all grow up in family homes, but I get this distinct feeling that we people of colors of this country don't actually plan the family home estate properly. We just take it for granted. And then, but we never really have a succession plan or a legal plan in place.
Yes, ma'am. So what usually happens? Okay, let's start here.
Yes.
Legally speaking, there is no such thing really that is called a family home. It is not, what can I say? It is not dealt with in any particular aspect of our law. So what is usually the case is that Tabiseng dies today, and then she leaves her house that is still under her name, under her husband's name if she was married, and that title deed remains as such. So if you do not leave a will that stipulates exactly how it is you would wish your property to be dealt with, then you have a problem, because now we are dealing with things such as intestate succession, because you did not leave a will. So now with intestate succession, what happens is that inheritance is dealt with in terms of the bloodline, who is left. So if Ntabiseng leaves her husband, then the husband may most likely inherit everything, which includes the house, because about 75 to 90% of the estate would go to the husband. So it is important for us to leave a will so that we can talk about what is going to happen with the immovable property. So that is what we mean when we say there is no such thing as a family home, because in law it is not catered for. At the deed registrar, the house is not registered as family home of the Dubazanas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but then at the end of the day, unfortunately or fortunately, we were all raised under that roof, and therefore it is deemed a family home. So the case that led to us now having to have some kind of recognition over the term of family home is the Dlamini case. It was decided last year in the High Court. If I'm not mistaken, it's on appeal for various reasons. The idea of a family home, as you have stated correctly, is rooted in our customary law. And it comes with most customs. That is what it is. This is where we grew up. This is where when a child is born, what do you call the umbilical cord? Yes. Is then dug up and put, yes, that's so to record. So it is there and all of that, and then the family now wants to keep that house and make it part of, their family for generations to come. That can be catered for in a will, and then it can be kept in the family under the umbrella of a family home. But if there's no will, or a will stipulates that I am going to leave this house to Bridget instead of any other of the children, then I am inheriting that, so that property is mine. So it may be that we all are there, but that property is mine. I can do what I want with that property now, and this is what happened in the Dlamini matter, because the family members still remaining there. They were still raising kids and their kids, etc. And this person, the property now transferred into her name, was incurring costs in terms of electricity, water, rates, taxes, and nobody in this.
We are losing you there for a second, Thabisang. I don't know if our network is getting affected by rain, but let's try and let's see how far we get. Yes. So yes.
So when they started this case, Dlamini, then the process for eviction to say, okay, you guys are not contributing to the house, you guys are not doing anything to help me out, so leave the property so I can do something about it and pay for my rents and taxes. And then all the other family members were saying, no, we're not going. This is where we grew up, where we intend to raise our children. And then this is when it went to the High Court. And in the High Court, it was ruled that that house can be deemed as a family home. But what the court did, what we call a caveat, it's like an instruction to speak on the title deed, that the person on whom the title deed belongs to, so in saying whose name is on the title deed, is prevented from selling the property because other family members are in there.
Thabisang, let's just switch you to a different line quickly, because important information that you're giving us here, and it speaks a lot to the dynamics, especially of black and brown family households. So we don't want to miss any moment of it. We are in conversation with Thabisang Dubazane, who's the director of Dubazane Attorneys, and we're talking family home inheritance and disputes. Just trying to switch it to a different line so that we can have clarity of line, because so many of us grow up, especially, black and brown communities, we grow up in that construct of, we were raised kagogo. You were born and raised at grandma's house. Your mom and your dad then took over grandma's house. And there's this assumption of there is this family home that must be held and preserved. But hey, she just says legally, law doesn't speak to that. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come right back.
Save and win a car with Spar, for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 1 kg stock country spread medium fat tub for $43.99. Plus 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 900 gram Bacomo wheat specs, original only, for $49.99. Plus 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 6 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
In an apartment far, far away.
Mara Springs is not that far, Mos.
Who's the narrator here?
Sorry.
Exists a room dedicated to who Morena refers to as the GOAT. From his very first soccer boots, right down to the shirt that he wore in his final World Cup, Morena has it all. Ask Morena anything about the GOAT, and the answer will roll off his tongue like second nature. Morena is not just obsessed. Morena is the GOAT's super fan.
Uzwile boy, it's me, super fan.
Yeah, sure, boy. Tune in to Superfan Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. on S3 and watch contestants compete in challenges related to their favorite artist, ultimately lip-syncing to determine the ultimate superfan.
Fadlu Davis is back home to finish what he started in East Africa. But Steve Barker and his boys believe they can find an equalizer in their own backyard. Stellies collides with Wekundu Wamsimbazi. This is the second leg semi-final battle of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Catch the spectacular contest of African football. Stellenbosch FC versus Simba Sports Club. This Sunday, 27 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
It's a pity that the phone line really ate up a lot of our time. But just to double back quickly, Ntabi saying, around the Dlamini case,
Yes.
what was the sort of the deciding factors there in who has claim to the family home and the conditions of it being regarded as a family home for future generations still?
So what the court decided in this particular matter was to say that there should be a caveat. So a caveat is, for lack of a better term, would be like an instruction on the title deed or a stipulation or a condition, right, on the title deed that says that Ntabi Singh, whose name is on the title deed, is prevented from making any sale of this property as this property is deemed to be a family home. So the difficulty with adapting customary law, like you were saying, to most of our African families, Indian families, colored families, etc., the difficulty with all of this is that the Deeds Registry Act, for example, does not cater for a family home. It caters for somebody who has their name on the title deed. That's whom they protect. So by so doing, by adding this caveat, it's like, for example, adding a usufruct to say that upon my death, you can't sell the house as long as Bridget is still living in the property. We can only sell it upon Bridget's death. So that's what the caveat kind of really means, that as long as there's still people that are living within this property, Ntabi Singh is prevented from selling the property. But now the issue that I believe that it is being taken to on appeal for is that, yes, okay, there's this caveat, but there's still other statutory laws that are not being dealt with. The Deeds Registry says that property is mine, I can do with it as I please. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I have to pay rates and taxes. These people who are living there are not paying it, so what are we going to do about that? The property is also now under my name by virtue of inheritance. If I am married in whatever marital regime, it forms part of my estate. What then? What do we do then? So that's part of the reasons I do believe why it is that it's going on appeal, because it's going to affect so many laws that are currently in existence that deal with property, whether from deceased estates, whether from marriage, whatever the case may be. And if this particular precedent is upheld, a lot of changes would have to be done to a lot of legislation to accommodate for a family home. So until that appeal has been finalized, right now as we stand, because, you know, when you take matters on appeal, it kind of makes the current order stay until the decision has been made. Right now, as we speak, the rule, I beg your pardon, remains as is, that there is no such thing as a family home until the SCA confirms it.
Yeah, very interesting, because then we're going to go to WhatsApp quickly, because, I was about to ask, how does this essentially affect then the legalities around family homes and the consequences thereof? But let's go to WhatsApp quickly, just before we run out of time.
Hello, Bridget. One of the things I find iniquitous about the property market and the situation that you're talking about is gentrification, like's happened in Salt River, where people around are buying properties at higher prices, and then the rates go up, which makes it unaffordable for the people to hold on to their homes that they've been in their families for generations. There should be a law protecting people who have had title deed for their generations to have a rates rebate, considerable rates rebate, enabling those people to keep them in their homes for as long as they need through the generations. I think that would be an equitable change, from my lips to God's ears.
Mm-hmm. A slightly different angle there, but I guess still speaking to perhaps just the future of such homes. You've alluded to the fact that whatever the outcomes at the SCA is going to have a ripple effect on a number of laws. Realistically, in your professional opinion, looking into the hourglass, the chances of a family home ruling perhaps being upheld?
You know what? The hope is that it is upheld because of where we come from, because of our history, because we understand the significance of a family home. But the realistic approach to how it is going to be dealt with is going to be very difficult, because a lot of laws have to be amended to accommodate this particular aspect. We're going to have to deal with the Matrimonial Property Act, how that is going to be dealt with. If I'm left my family home in a will, or I inherited via interstate succession, then it cannot be part and parcel of my joint estate with my partner, my husband, my wife, whatever the case may be. Then we are dealing also with the Deeds Registry Act, which needs to be amended, so that the term family home can then be defined in law to say this is what we would deem a family home to be. And then it will have to also amend, for example, the Administration of Deceased Estates Act. How do we deal with that? And then Interstate Succession Act itself has to be dealt with. The Divorce Act has to be dealt with in that respect, because it doesn't only affect the people who are residing in the property. It would make sense if the court had said, yes, it's an eviction, but you haven't proved that these people can be placed in any other accommodation apart from the one that they're in now. But to say that it is a family home, therefore they're entitled by virtue of customary law, is beautiful, but how far is the ripple effect going to go when it comes to the other laws that are going to be affected by this situation?
Yeah, it's so unfortunate that we've run out of time for this conversation. I see our listeners wanting to engage on it as well. Perhaps let's see what happens somewhere down the line. We might revisit it again. Thabiseng Dubazane, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Thabiseng is the director at Dubazane Attorneys. It's just gone 2:30. It's time for the headline news with Onde Lambana, and then we're going to come back and get into our kids programming.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa has confirmed he had a telephonic conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump this morning ahead of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to South Africa. The EFF has called on Parliament to withdraw the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals adopted nearly 4 weeks ago. The party is also calling for the resignation of Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, and the grandson of the late ANC President Chief Albert Luthuli has told the Pietermaritzburg High Court that the explanation given by the train driver surrounding his grandfather's death is contradictory. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Asibambisane. Tsini na tsini. Ayikhomaneni. Ha re tshwaraneng. Say and say. Side by side.
Good afternoon and welcome to Side by Side right here on SAFM, brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifala Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Side by Side is your go-to space for information that empowers and uplifts caregivers and parents alike. Today we're talking about something every parent thinks about: child supervision at home and what to consider when you need to leave your child in someone else's care. On our drama episode yesterday, Unes Piliswa shared important insights on why proper supervision is more than just keeping an eye out. She said it's about creating a safe space, nurturing space where children can grow and thrive. So how do you choose the right caregiver? What should you look out for? And how do you make sure your little one is protected and cared for even when you're not around? Stay with us as we explore all of that and more in today's important conversation. Joining us today to talk about child supervision at home and what to consider when you leave your child in someone else's care is Dr. Hlophe from Heridwala Hospital. Dr. Hlophe, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's talk about something every parent thinks about: keeping our little ones safe. Why is proper supervision so important, especially for young children?
Thank you for having me today. Children, they need a safe and secure environment to thrive in their life and learning. Effective supervision is integral to creating environments that are safe and responsive to the needs of all children. It also helps to protect children from hazards or harm that may rise from their play and daily routines. Young children are naturally curious and they may not understand the dangers around them. Supervision helps prevent accidents and injuries by ensuring that children are always within sight and reach of a responsible adult. It also provides an opportunity for parents and caregivers to guide and teach children about safe behaviors and help them develop trust and a sense of security. Never leave your children in the care of other children. Proper supervision ensures that the kids are safe, which prevents accidents and injuries. They make sure that there is better guidance, which allows adults to teach children about the safe behaviors. Also builds trust, which helps the children to develop a sense of security and trust in their caregivers.
Well, but sometimes we have to leave our kids in someone else's care, maybe with a family member, a neighbor, or crèche. What should parents be thinking about when making this decision?
When leaving a child in someone else's care, parents should ensure that the caregiver is trustworthy, is responsible, and experienced in handling young children. It is important to discuss the child's routine, preferences, and any specific needs with the caregiver. Parents should also provide emergency contact information and make sure the caregiver knows what to do in case of an emergency. Visiting a caregiver's home or a facility in advance to check for safety and cleanliness is also advisable.
Dr. Hlophe, thank you so much for joining us today. But before we wrap up, do you have any extra tips or advice for parents when it comes to making sure their children are well looked after?
Yes. If you are leaving your child with a babysitter or a nanny, it is important to carry out necessary background checks. This proactive approach helps manage potential risks. Most importantly, comprehensive screening is an effective way to improve reliability and trustworthiness. Improve security in your home. Protecting your children involves using various methods. However, sometimes you might face challenges that force you to leave their care in someone else's hands. A safe home is necessary for your kids and can improve your peace of mind while you are away. Here are a few tips to enhance security measures at home. Have a checklist that includes emergency numbers. Teach your children key safety rules, such as not speaking to strangers who want to enter the premises. Cover electric plugs. Understand internet child-related dangers. Young children require protection in and outside the home. They are most vulnerable group and need your care and attention to improve their safety. Additionally, keeping up to date with risk they might be exposed to can help you recognize an issue sooner. In summary, placing your child in someone else's care can make you anxious. There are various things to consider regarding their safety and finding ways to protect them. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening to Side by Side, the show that supports you to give your child the best possible start in life. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa Labantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA and look out for more great content. Join us again, same time next week when we'll be talking about the importance of fathers in a child's life.
Asibambisane Zinina zini Ayikhomaneni Harzwaraneni Say and say Side by side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
After a 0-all draw Mzansi, the Pyramids are confident they will complete their agenda with victory on home soil. But Rivero's boys believe they will end their long-distance trip to Egypt with an impressive performance. This is the second leg semi-final clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the thrilling encounter of African football. Pyramids FC versus Orlando Pirates this Friday, 25 April at 7:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 2 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, made the bay. From the grind to the glam. Anelezondo the glow up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, with me, KG Mwekezi.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
We are wrapping it up now, talking to Dr. Sichaba Mape, who's an architect and the director of the design practice at, is it Afritecture, and a senior lecturer at Witzer School of Architect and Planning. We're reimagining urban and rural housing in South Africa by using design and architect to perhaps change the way we live in various spaces. How are you doing, Doc?
Fine, and yourself?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for the time. Much appreciated. Much appreciated indeed. Is this the prime time for us to sort of start revisiting the past and those sort of ancient references in terms of architecture and how it relates to town planning and how we move into the future considering all of that context?
Well, I think, yes, it is an important time because I think more than anything, instead of just thinking about the way we used to technically do stuff, is to remind ourselves that we used to do stuff for ourselves. So in other words, that we actually had the capacity, the skills, and the will to build our own houses. Many people don't know that in Mpumalanga there's a place called Bokoni, which is a massive ancient settlement that had, tens, maybe thousands, tens of thousands of people living in these settlements, and they weren't built by, quote unquote, a government. They were built by the people. And so my point is, it's time for us to remember that we had the capacity, and we still do, even though apartheid did everything that it could to cut people's ability to be self-sustaining.
A poignant reminder there, reminding ourselves that we still, or that rather we used to do the things ourselves. And do you think that might even change the conversation around urban and rural development if we injected this sense of recognizing that not only do we have the skill, but to some degree, we might even also have the natural resource?
You see, that's exactly the point. It's about mindset, Many people really think that they are unable to do certain things. And yes, poverty and inequality are quite massive challenges. But I've seen people who work with very little resources around them and make a lot out of those very little resources. And as you say, you're alluding to what's available around us. Like, for instance, people used to build with stone. Nowadays, when people build with real stone, it's only the rich who build with real stone. Everyone else builds with fake stone cladding. But there's an abundance of this material, and some of our own people see it as archaic and old. Yet the very rich are the ones who appreciate that they want to have real stone masons build with real stone for them.
The role of architecture, the role of architecture in this conversation, particularly South African architecture in this conversation. I mean, is there even such a thing, really?
That's my big project, Nowadays, I'm writing the word African on buildings. I recently did an exhibition at Wits where I put the word African very big on our architecture building to basically raise the question, what is African architecture? But I think the most important thing really is, I was saying earlier today in a different context that when the ANC mobilized a group of people to try and change South Africa back in the day, I'm talking about like in the pre-apartheid time, pre-New South Africa times, they kind of had this internal, self-propelled, led by powerful and great leaders with vision kind of situation, and they had to establish a sense of identity. I always say that Solomon Tekisho Blackie went to meet W.E. Du Bois in the U.S., and they were asking the question, guys, when we get liberation, what are we going to be? We're not going to be pseudo-whites, and we're also not going to be inferior slaves. They had to define a vision for who they were going to be. We need that kind of leadership today to say, what does it mean to be an African? What do we mean when we say African architecture? What kind of cities do we want to live in? And how can we draw from our own resources, the very little that we have, to make this vision come true? So we've done it before when we moved from being, slaves of apartheid to who we are today. And I think we just need that energy again.
You know what I love about what you're saying, Dr. Sichaba, is that it resonates with me personally, given the history of where my career has taken me. And there was a preoccupation in the last 5-6 years to answer that question and to bring that into consciousness. Who were we as Africans, first and foremost? Who were we as Africans before all the systems, before colonization, before apartheid, before we were derailed?
You must come and study it. You must study in my course, I'll tell you.
Before that derailment, because I think it speaks a lot to getting back to your point about we need to remind ourselves that we had a vision for ourselves before it got derailed. And we had all the tools and all the indigenous knowledges to make those visions a reality, including visions around our homesteads and how our cities should look in order for them to provide for us.
In Bokoni, this is in Mpumalanga, there's evidence of terraced farming that was part of these settlements, right? And this terraced farming was a technology that was so good that it created such high yield of agricultural produce, which was mainly controlled by women, that it allowed for additional surplus and trade, with communities around. Because these women were just so good at making moisture retain in this type of, this type of farming style. So that's an illustration of the way in which there was ingenuity to such an extent that you'd see trade. I mean, when you go back to the kind of archaeological evidence in that region, you see that eventually people were trading with China. This is like back in the day. This is like way pre-colonial times, right? Trading with China, trading with India. There are glass beads that they find in some of these communities, like Great Zimbabwe, for instance. There are glass beads that were melted, remelted, made into new things. So it was hectic. I always say to my students that time was our time of Wakanda, And this is history that people don't even want us to know. You hear people saying it was either aliens or it was Arabs who built those things.
Yeah. How do we go about incorporating such indigenous knowledges and systems now as we build for a future Africa? And if you look at the context also of South Africa, we're grappling with things, global warming, climate change. And so this conversation is of relevance for us to say, how do we infuse all those indigenous systems into building for a stronger, more sustainable, more human-centric South Africa moving forward?
The biggest issue is our people themselves, because I always say, guys, why do people want Tuscan houses? Tuscan houses are houses that were indigenous to Tuscany. So imagine you go to Italy and all you see are Zulu rondavels. Wouldn't you ask the people, but guys, why are you building Zulu rondavels here in Italy?
Yeah.
Which is, in effect, what we're doing in South Africa. And again, this goes back to what I said about Soulblackie. It's almost like self-hate, We don't recognize the value that we have within ourselves. And these were things that was obviously systemic. I mean, the apartheid government made it they really tried. I just read a paper now where someone was talking about how there's this thing that blacks can't farm. But that's because the apartheid government forced people into very marginal rural areas because of the, Bantustans, where there was hardly any arable land, and there was overproduction or over-farming because people were desperate. There were high concentrations of populations in very marginal, very poor soils. So there's been a long effort to systematically make us feel as if we are inadequate, including our cultures. People being told, you guys are backward, you're primitive, you're whatever. And so to undo that, I think education is fundamental to undo that. But even what you're doing now in this conversation, we need to tell people that, guys, we had lots of value in the past. Stop looking at Tuscan, or, the other one they say is, modern. I want a modern house. What is that? So I really think it's about a mindset and drawing new pride in who we are as Africans.
You're shattering all of our dreams this afternoon. I feel there is a happy medium of modernity and indigenous structure. But
No.
Let's come back on the other side of that, because our commercials are about to rudely interrupt us. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll pick up from how you fully agree with me.
The Red Devils want to add more heat in Cairo to make life difficult for Masandawana, but Kabuyelo refuse to shake and break. They are on a mission to elevate their game and march to the final with big smiles. It is do or die. This is the second leg semi-final encounter of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Catch the incredible action of African football. Al Ahly FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC This Friday, 25 April at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The confession booth. A place where the sin-laden soul can offload their transgressions, all in the hopes of finding reprieve for their sins. Stolen your co-worker's lunch? Then the ordinary confession booth with your regular priest will do. But murdered your long-time nemesis and dumped their body in a vat of acid? Oh, then you better hope you're not in Father Brown's confession booth, because he is bent on catching all the bad guys. Tune in to Father Brown, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m, only on S3. Open up.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
We are in conversation with Dr. Sichawe Mape, who's an architect and director of the design practice at Afritecture and a senior lecturer at the Wits School of Architecture and Planning. So, Doc, I mean, the challenge is to find a happy medium, right? To not shatter our dreams of modernity, but while still keeping our indigenous ways and systems very much alive and taking them into the future.
Well, firstly, I would say that even to say there's some kind of dichotomy between modern and indigenous is a false dichotomy, because you can be modern while you're embracing things that make sense for the context in which you're in. So, for instance, take a roof of a house that is a very, like this triangular pitch roof that you see in some of the estates. Why do people build roofs like that? Well, in England or somewhere in the northern hemisphere, snow sits on top of a roof, and so you want it to slide down so that it doesn't start, melting into the building, correct?
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is to have a very steep pitch of a roof. But if you apply that in a context like ours where there's no snow, unless you're like in Lesotho or something, why would you do something like that? So ultimately what I'm saying is that the way in which people built indigenous structures here in South Africa in the past, it was from thousands of years of calibration, recognizing exactly what needs to happen in the environment and being so finely attuned to our context. That's actually highly rational. It's not just some, local kind of cultural thing that we do without it having its roots in rationality. So that's my point, is that we need to have pride in the way in which we did things, because they were based on reason, they were based on wisdom, and not just copy something from overseas because, it's trendy and fashionable. I mean, another example is like white paint. There's a specific kind of architecture that comes from Europe where everything had to be white. How practical is it to keep something white? How much maintenance, how much time, how much money, etc. So that's kind of just the point that I'm making, that we need to recognize our value and why we did things the way we did here in South Africa.
Yeah. I would have loved to engage you as well on reimagining design that speaks to some of the challenges that we face, especially when it comes to affordable housing and the access to land in this country. But maybe in just under a minute, you can give us a little snapshot of your thoughts there as we conclude.
Again, it's the same thing. The person who designed the first four-room house, the one I grew up in, designed it there at Wits University. It was a person with a brain and a mind, and they created this thing, and it created lots of problems for us. We need to apply the same kind of brain and mind to design something that's an alternative. It's not impossible. Apartheid housing, apartheid spatial planning, all of it was designed by some guy in some lab or whatever, and it was given to the CSIR and distributed. We need to basically apply our minds in the same way, design something more sustainable and suitable for our people, and distribute it.
Wonderful. Dr. Sichaba, I appreciate the time with you today. What an enlightening conversation. That is how we wrap it up from our end. But before Ashraf comes through, we are going to play out with some of your thoughts from our earlier conversations. We will see you tomorrow again. We have a date between 1 and 3. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
I'm 42 years old and I look like a 25-year-old, maybe a 22-year-old. How I can tell you, life is so something else. The things that I'm experiencing these days. The younger, they can't see if I'm old. The older, they can't see if I'm there up here. So it's interesting and challenging.
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm 61 going on 62. Luckily for me, my wife is about 14 years younger than I am. I still work, plan to work until I get to 65 or till I get chased away from work. I do have the irritations of growing older. I do have the pains of growing older. But it's wonderful to get up in the morning. The only thing that irritates me is when my kids think they can decide for me. That's all.
Hello, radio. Yeah, you have a very nice topic today about aging. Me, I'm 62. I just in my heart, I just feel youthful. I just feel young. Mari, I go to I want to get along with the young people and do what things and do that and do that. They will only remind me that now you are older, but I look at my face. Yes, my face is changed. It's changed to become a 62-year-old, but I don't feel it within me. Within my body, I don't feel it. I'm energetic. I do everything. I don't know how does it come like that.
Ramaphosa confirms his telephonic conversation with Trump, and EFF calls for the withdrawal of the fiscal framework proposals. For SFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa has confirmed he had a telephonic conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump this morning ahead of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to South Africa. Ramaphosa says he and Trump discussed a number of issues, including the war in Ukraine. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine more than 3 years ago. President Ramaphosa says earlier in the week he also spoke to Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin. Ramaphosa has addressed the media in Pretoria alongside President Zelensky. He says South Africa will continue with its efforts aiming to assist the ending of war in Ukraine.
The call between myself and President Trump was long in the making, and I last